The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 206. Michigan's freshman football and basketball classes are on campus and beginning preparation for their respective seasons. And football's classes of 2015 and 2016 have picked up some more verbals. That and more on this week's show. This is the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. On this week's show, we have our June update on the football classes of 2015 and even 2016. Recruiting analyst Tim Sullivan from the Wolverine magazine will join us in just a few minutes on our Michigan Gameday segment. First, let's take a look at our news and notes for this week. The NBA draft will take place on Thursday, and 4 Wolverines will be anxiously waiting to see where and if they will go in the draft. Will Nick Stauskas be a lottery pick? Will Mitch McGary go in the first round or hang around into the second? Can Glenn Robinson III go in the first round or will he fall into the second? And Jordan Morgan, he also hopes to get picked up in this draft. Most draft boards don't have Jordan going anywhere on Thursday, but it's quite likely he'll have plenty of free agent offers if he doesn't get picked. Michigan's heralded freshman football class is on campus and ready to join in on summer workouts. That includes super recruit Jabril Peppers. The 6-man basketball class is also on campus and will be included when the team makes their Italy exhibition trip in August. All of the incoming freshmen, both football and basketball, will be taking classes in the Michigan Bridge program, which allows them to get a jump on the rigors of competing in a sport and adjusting to the classroom workload, which will lighten their load during their respective seasons. We have about 5 weeks until Team 135 hits the practice field. In the meantime, the coaching staff is very busy recruiting, not only for the class of 2015, but also 2016. Today, recruiting analyst Tim Sullivan from the Wolverine magazine joins me on Michigan Gameday for our June recruiting fix. That's next here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. Here with us today on our June recruiting update is analyst Tim Sullivan from the Wolverine. Great to have you back on the show, Tim.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Well, it's June. Summer just started. As always, it's going to be a busy summer. That's the way the recruiting game is going, Tim. It just never ends, does it?
No, and especially with this Michigan coaching staff, it seems like they like to do a lot of their recruiting in the summer, so that keeps me busy during the summer months, too.
The first kid I wanted to talk about, though, Tim, he's not really a 2015 commit in the sense that he's brand new. Ty Isaac was big news a couple of weeks ago. Of course, a highly touted running back out of Joliet Catholic. Michigan was recruiting him last year, or 2 years ago, I should say. The big news is he transfers from USC, and now I guess we just wait and see, will he be eligible this year, or is he going to sit out? But a big catch.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the 2013 recruiting class, which he was originally a member of before he chose USC over Michigan, he was probably the Michigan coaching staff first priority or co-first priority, along with Derek Green, who they did end up landing when they missed on Isaac. He's a big deal. He's a huge kid, every bit of 6'3", 225. That's what USC listed him at last year. He's every bit of it. Kind of an interesting height for a running back. You tend to see shorter guys to a certain degree, so that sometimes college coaches are worried that those taller guys will get hurt. But he has it all. He's kind of your agile sort of guy. He's a nice complement to the power runners that the coaches brought in and played as freshmen last year in Green and Devion Smith. And he adds another piece to a talented stable. The question of whether he'll be eligible this year, I would guess that he probably won't be. And I think the Michigan coaches are probably okay with that. They didn't land a running back in the 2014 class. They obviously have the two kids that I already mentioned making up the 2013 class. So it provides them kind of as though they landed a 2014 kid in Isaac if he ends up having to redshirt because of his transfer.
Yeah, it seems like it would be quite the stretch. I know we never know what to expect from the NCAA, but
you're telling me, man.
no, as you said, the Michigan staff probably is not expecting that he'll get cleared. But even if he does not get cleared, he's in the fold. Does that mean that he is eligible for spring practice coming up?
Yeah, he will be eligible for every type of practice that the coaches have, that the program has. Just won't be able to participate in competition. In fact, that's how the wording of the NCAA rule is written, is that they are eligible basically in every way except for competition. So no games, but just about everything else with the program.
Okay, well, however you cut it, it's great to have depth in the backfield. And this kid is such a rare combination of speed and size. I think everyone is very excited with how the backfield competition shapes up for the future. Well, since our May update, Tim, there have been a couple of new commits, I think just 2 in the month of June, and the class of 2015 number is now 8. Let's start with what appears to be a big catch in 5-star Chris Clark. He just committed last week. He's from Avon Old Farms High School in Avon, Connecticut, and he was being recruited by all of the big boys, wasn't he?
Yeah, Alabama, Florida State, everybody that you would expect, especially for a tight end. Those two programs are some pretty impressive ones. Every single program in the country wanted him. Now, some programs probably have picked up a tight end since they started recruiting him. He might not have been on everybody's recruiting board still, but it did come down to a few programs that are pretty good in Michigan State, Ohio State, North Carolina, and then, of course, Michigan by the time he ended up committing last week. And Michigan got their guy. I think he was probably the top tight end on the board from the beginning. It looked like they had missed on him. He made an early commitment to North Carolina, but pretty shortly after making that commitment, decided, you know what, I made this decision a little bit hastily. I'm going to kind of look around and make sure that was the right choice, and ultimately decided that his future would be in Michigan instead.
And he looks like one of these kids that you never know, but looks like he might be able to come right in and contribute.
Yeah, he's already a big kid. He measured in at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge just under a month ago at 6'6" and 253 pounds. So that's probably bigger than most of the tight ends on Michigan's roster right now, other than A.J. Williams. So he has the size. What's impressive about him is despite that big size, you expect a kid with that sort of size to be probably first a blocker, then a receiver. He's actually first a receiver, so he has that size that will allow him to become a great blocker, but he is a pass-catching tight end at his heart, and that's what's really going to help him make an impact early in his career probably.
Well, the other highly regarded commit this month has been Grant Newsome. He's a 6'6", 290-pound offensive tackle. He's from the Lawrenceville School in Trenton, New Jersey. Tell us about this kid.
Yeah, he's obviously a big kid at that size, and he's your true left tackle type. He's very nimble. He's quick on his feet. He can move really well. He doesn't have a whole lot of experience in just drive run blocking, which you would expect from a lot of high school kids. And I guess he has experience in it, but that's not his strength at this point, I should say. But that's something that once he continues to shape his body and get into a college strength and conditioning program especially, will really help him succeed at the next level because he has the natural athleticism that allows him to be a pass blocker. And it's just about refining all the small things, learning a little bit of technique, adding maybe a little bit more of that nasty attitude that the coaches like to see out of offensive linemen. But he definitely has all the tools to make an impact.
Well, as we said at the top here, Tim, the commit list for the class of 2015 now numbers 8. Let's just take a minute to run down the other 6 kids. I think most of our listeners keep up with the recruiting process, but let's just refresh everyone's memory. The first kid, let's get your take on each one of these as we read them off here, is Garrett Taylor. Garrett, I should say, he's a cornerback. 4 or 5-star commit, depends where you look, from St. Christopher's School in Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah, I really like Taylor. He's a taller corner. He's over 6'1". He's very physical, and I think landing a kid like that helps the coaches do what they want to do, which is get to a more physical, in-your-face type of defensive backs. I know a lot of fans are looking for that too, so it makes them happy to see that Michigan is aiming for that. He allows them to play more press coverage, more man coverage. He's big, and a lot of people are thinking, does he turn into a safety because of that height? It's rare to see a kid with his height have the type of hips to cover in man coverage closely. That he can do it, and that's what made him such a highly regarded guy, and I think that's what made the Michigan coaches want him so badly.
Oh, another kid back in that secondary. You talk about big. He's already got good size for a safety. It's Tyree Cannell out of Wayne High School in Dayton, Ohio. Big hitter.
Yeah, he's a kid that he almost has the coverage skills of a corner. Now, high school corner, he probably won't stand up with a lot of college corners, but he has coverage skills like that. But the coverage skills are more secondary to the type of physical play that he brings. He's the sort of guy who's always in the right position, and he can really come up and hit you. Obviously, in high school football, you see a lot of teams not really having complex passing games, so he has a lot of experience defending against the run. And in the games that I've seen him, which has been a few over the years now, he's always been capable of coming up and putting a hit on a running back, or even blitzing and hitting the quarterback. He can really do the physical side of things, and learning coverages in a more complex way once he gets to college is pretty much all that's standing between Tyree Cannell and a pretty successful college career.
Well, in the linebacking core, we picked up a kid who just about everyone, I think, has as a 5-star and has just raved about since he committed to Michigan, Darren Kirkland Jr., 6'2", 200, almost 240 pounds. The kid's a senior in high school out of Indianapolis. He looks like a kid out of Central Casting for middle linebacker.
Yeah, he definitely he looks the part, that's for sure. For a while, he kind of looked like he was a bit of a tweener. He had like a thin build, but was still tipping the scales at the weight that you would want out of a linebacker. And then once he started putting on even more weight to get that linebacker look, he was huge. And that's how you end up with a guy that's 240 pounds going into his senior year of high school. He definitely looks the part. He's the sort of guy who's been kind of a hard-nosed run defender for his entire high school career, which you expect a lot out of high school linebackers. But he also has great athleticism going backwards to defend in pass coverage. And that's something, especially with the rise of spread offenses across college football, that's something that you want your linebackers to be able to do. It might not be their first priority, but you certainly want them to be able to do it. And Kirkland has the wide tool set to be able to defend the run, to be able to defend the pass, and he's another one of those guys that's just learning the small techniques that are more advanced in college than they are in high school, or is really going to take him to the next level.
And Tim, as far as offensive linemen go, we already talked about Grant Newsom, who was a recent commit, a kid who's been in the fold for a while now. He's a legacy. John Runyon Jr., and John, of course, is from St. Joseph's High School in Philadelphia. You hear a lot of people say he needs to get bigger. I don't know, the listings of him are 6'4", 276, but not quite as big as his dad yet, is he?
No, his dad, I think, measured in at like 6'7" by the time he left Michigan, and so John doesn't quite have that same height as John Sr., but he's certainly growing. I saw him at the Michigan summer camp last year, saw him again this year. And he might not be a whole lot taller. He might be a little taller, but he just looks completely different from a physical standpoint. Much thicker, especially in his legs, and that's where you want to see an offensive lineman have a lot of muscle, because that's where they get their power when they're blocking guys. And he's definitely put in the work in the weight room to add that sort of power that you would like to see him add. And at this point, a kid's a senior in high school. You're not too worried about him only being 275 pounds. You expect that a college strength and conditioning staff will be able to get him up to about 300 pounds, which is where you would want an interior lineman, which he's expected to play unless he gets as tall as Tad. You want them to be about 300 pounds, and he has the frame to probably get there.
Well, the 2 offensive linemen in this class, I'm sure there'll be more before it's all said and done in this what number's 8 right now. As far as quarterbacks go, 1 commit in this class, Alex Malzone out of Birmingham, Brother Rice. And I know when Alex committed, there were a lot of Michigan fans, a lot of my listeners said, "Are you kidding me? Is he really that good? Is he the kind of kid we think can play at Michigan?" But since he's committed, he made a lot of news himself with his comment in Columbus about it's not the last time he'll be leaving there happy. But he's really jumped up in the rating services, hasn't he?
Yeah, he really impressed at the Detroit Rivals Camp Series event that we had at Saline High School. So not really in Detroit. It's for the locals, we know it's not really that close to Detroit. But he really impressed there, and really that started a really strong spring for him. Since then, obviously that Columbus comment that he made, it's not the last time I'll be happy leaving Columbus, came after he earned an invitation to the Elite 11 at the Elite 11 tryout in Columbus earlier this spring, and he's shown that he is one of those Elite 11 type guys. Obviously, that's the camp for high school quarterbacks. It used to be in California, now it's part of Nike's opening out in Oregon. But they only invite 18 guys, and he's shown that he's one of the top 18 in the country. And with the improvements that he's made, even since last season, when it's hard to say a kid had a whole lot to prove when he's led his high school team to 2 straight state titles, but he has made so many improvements since then. He's cleaned up his throwing motion. He's gotten, he has that baseball throwing motion. He's also a baseball player. He's cleaned up a lot of that. The thing that I've noticed seeing him play several times already this spring is that he has just gotten so consistent with his accuracy. It's just unbelievable. I've seen a lot of talented quarterbacks. Some of them may have bigger arms than Malzone. Some of them may have more size. A lot of them have more size than Malzone. He's only about 6'2", but very few of them have been as accurate as he has been. And for a kid who hasn't been a full-time football player, he's also playing baseball quite a bit. That's just an unbelievable skill set for him to already be displaying, and he's only going to get better from here.
And I think that's one of the reasons a lot of Michigan recruiting fanatics that follow recruiting so closely were maybe taken a bit back when Alex committed. One of the reasons maybe he wasn't getting as much press as a lot of folks, a lot of kids. He was actually playing baseball, so it wasn't until this year that he's completely committed to being a football player.
Yeah, that's I think probably the biggest factor, because since he's committed himself to being a football player, even just he played baseball this spring, so he's only been a full-time football player for a couple months now. He's just made these leaps and bounds of improvement, and as he continues to focus exclusively on football, that rate of improvement can even get better.
Well, the last kid on our list of the 8 commits so far is a kicker, Andrew David. He's a 2-star, 3-star. It's hard to tell with kickers. We all know that. He's out of a great program, though, in Massillon, Ohio. So he plays on Friday nights before pretty darn big crowds. And from what we hear and see of this kid, strong leg.
Yeah, I actually went and saw him play at Massillon Washington High School this year. I know a lot of people think it was probably a waste of my time to go see a kicker, but I'm very thorough. If nothing else, I'm very thorough. So I saw him play, and he played that game in front of probably 5,000 fans at Paul Brown Stadium down in Massillon. And he does have a strong leg. In the game that I saw him, he was a little shaky with his accuracy. He missed, I think, 2 field goals. One was blocked, one he just missed. Kicking off a tee in high school is very different from kicking off the ground in college. There's so much that goes into being a kicker that I think even people who know a whole lot about football, which I like to consider myself one of those people, just can't really fathom what exactly goes into the nuances of what translates to the next level and what doesn't. But the kicking experts out there, Brandon Kornblue, Chris Saylor, 2 of the best out there, ranked kickers nationally, and he's in the top 10 kickers by both of those guys for the 2015 class. A really good kicker and the sort of kid whose skills will translate either kicking or punting to the next level. Although David has told me that he plans to primarily be just a kicker to start. Maybe he can add punting duties later in his career, but he certainly can do both for his high school team.
Well, those are the 8 commits that we have on the book so far. Looking ahead, Tim, running back Mike Weber from Cass Tech recently said his Michigan recruitment is heating up. Do you see him committing soon?
I don't see him committing soon. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up in the Michigan class eventually, but he's the sort of kid who has long held a timeline that he would like to stick to. Now, I've seen kids change their timeline, so it's not out of the question, but he wants to make his decision the week of the U.S. Army All-American Bowl, to which he has been selected. He wants to take all 5 of his official visits, wants to go through the entire recruiting process. And you can't really begrudge a kid for wanting to get the full experience and make his decision on national TV, all of those things. And I think that's certainly what he's going to end up doing, unless there's a major change in plans. Maybe a school that he really likes, which could include Michigan, says, we need you to make a decision a little sooner, or we might not have an opportunity for you. They're not going to pressure a kid to commit, but they are going to say this is the last spot that we have, or something like that. That would be the only situation I would see him making an earlier decision. But I do think as long as Michigan is in it until the end, as long as they make it until January, I think they have a great shot to land him. He's a kid who grew up a Michigan fan. His dad's a Michigan fan. His whole family's Michigan fans. And that fandom can come into play at the end, or at the very least, it'll keep Michigan in the mix.
With us on our June update show today is recruiting analyst Tim Sullivan from the Wolverine magazine. Tim, looking ahead to 2016, we have recently picked up a verbal from four-star quarterback Messiah DeWeaver. He's out of Dayton, Ohio. That gives us 2 commits in the class. What can you tell us about this kid?
He's a kid. I actually saw him play his first ever high school game a couple of years back. I was there to see Mike McCray, who will be a redshirt freshman linebacker this fall. But their quarterback got hurt in the first 5 minutes of the game against University School, a powerful program down in Florida. And they had to throw in this freshman whose only high school experience was a couple of weeks of practice. And he kind of struggled a little bit, but he came into his own by the end of the game. And in the 2 years since then that I've seen Messiah DeWeaver play, he's really come around as a quarterback prospect. He doesn't have the biggest arm in the world, but he certainly has enough arm to be successful at the next level. And he's one of those guys who's a true leader. He's led his team to the state championship game the past couple of years. And he's a kid that brings the intangibles plus what he does bring in terms of his ability to throw the football. I really like him. On a personal level, he's a nice kid. He fits the personality of what the coaches are looking for, and I think he's a great fit.
And it sounds like Coach Nussmeier was really impressed with this kid, really likes him.
Yeah, he participated in the Michigan summer camp, and he did not have an offer at that time. And he participated in the camp, and the coaches decided to offer him right then and there, and he committed Wednesday almost immediately after getting the offer within a couple hours. And the thing about that is the Michigan coaches had a lot of other really talented quarterbacks, maybe guys who are a little more recognized as being national prospects, really, really interested, and they offered DeWeaver knowing that it would likely result in a commitment. So they were, he showed himself to be good enough to say, forget about this guy that everybody thinks is a 5-star. We like our guy more, and we'll take him today.
Well, Tim, the other commit in the class of 2016 is a 4-star offensive tackle, Eric Swenson. He's from Downers Grove, Illinois. He's another road grader type of lineman Brady wants to stock up on, isn't he? Yeah,
he's the sort of kid who I've seen in camps many times, and you see him perform in camps, and obviously there are no pads in these summer camps. You're like, oh, he's a nice player, but just a nice player. And then you see him play on a Friday night with the lights on, and it's completely different. He can be a dominating run blocker, and his team runs behind him on just about every down, and he gets plenty of opportunities to show off his abilities as a dominating run blocker. He's just the sort of kid whose skill set translates to being on the field rather than in a camp setting, and he's really good when he gets there. He's not the biggest offensive lineman, but he does have the size, about probably 6'5" plus, that will allow him to play offensive tackle at the next level, and I think that's where the coaches would like to see him kind of lock down one of those left tackle type positions, and I think that he has the skills to do it, and he's going to be a major asset to this program going forward.
Well, sticking with the 2016 recruiting trail, which is really heating up, we recently received a visit from another really highly regarded quarterback, 2016 quarterback Malik Henry. He's not a pro-style quarterback. I guess he's one of these all-purpose types. But, now that DeWeaver has committed, do you see 2 quarterbacks in this class of 2016?
So it's an interesting question because under the previous offensive coordinator, Al Borges, Michigan had made it clear to all quarterbacks, we are taking 1 quarterback per class, pretty much no exceptions. And it has yet to be determined whether this, under Doug Nussmeier, whether this current makeup of the coaching staff will continue with the same sort of trend. I think the only situation that we would see them take 2, especially in this class, which is going to be a bigger class than the 2014 and 2015 classes, but it's not going to be the biggest class in the world. It'll only be in probably the high teens. The only situation that would see them take a second quarterback is if one of them is a dual threat that they could maybe say, if it doesn't work out for you at quarterback, you can change positions down the road. We've seen Michigan do that in the past. In the Lloyd Carr era, you saw Jermaine Gonzalez and Antonio Bass both come in with the hope of playing at least a little bit of quarterback and eventually moving to wide receiver. And I think that's the sort of thing, maybe a guy who could move to safety or wide receiver. And Henry would be one of those guys because he's so athletic. Somebody that could potentially change positions if he doesn't win the quarterback job once he gets to Michigan would be the only sort of situation that they'd probably bring in a second one for this class.
So he's not the kind of kid who's stuck on playing quarterback. He's willing to possibly move around if there are opportunities.
I think his strong preference is to play quarterback, but if he were to end up at Michigan, it would be probably with an understanding that he would potentially move positions down the road. And with a kid like that, a highly regarded kid and a really talented kid, they come in, even in that situation, knowing that's a possibility, willing to gamble on their own talent because they know they're talented and that they believe they can win that quarterback derby. And so even if they think that it's possible to not win that quarterback job, they think, oh, well, I'm good enough that I will win it either way. And just as often as not, guys prove themselves right by winning that job.
Well, Tim, a couple of other players Michigan has offered lately for the class of 2016 are three-star running back Elijah Holyfield from College Park, Georgia. We all know who his dad is, Evander Holyfield. And four-star running back Miles Sanders. He's from Woodland Hills near Pittsburgh. Either of these kids would be nice catches, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I really like Holyfield. I saw him at camp during the week at Michigan, and he's kind of built like a bowling ball. he's that tough looking runner that the Michigan coaching staff really likes. But when you see him get out and play, he really is much more agile than he looks like he would be. He's a little ball of muscle, but then he gets out and starts running, and you say, "Whoa! I guess this guy's dad was one of the greatest heavyweight boxers of all time." And you see that athleticism that just runs in the family. And with Sanders, he's kind of the opposite. He's a guy who looks small. He's not very heavy, and then you see him play and say, "Oh man, he plays with a little bit of power." Even though his calling card is certainly going to be his speed and agility, he also has the power that you think this coaching staff certainly requires to make sure that their pro-style offense can run effectively.
And Miles Sanders, I think he's rated the number 2 player in Pennsylvania in this class from Woodland Hills. I think he's pretty much considered a heavy Penn State lean, but he's a nice-looking back, isn't he?
Yeah, I like him. I think Pitt is another one that's going to make an impact on him. They were the first school to offer, and they have been on him for a long time. But he is a nice-looking back, and I think that as the recruiting class chugs along, every school is going to have a chance to convince him. He doesn't want to make any early decisions. So he's the sort of guy who every school that gets involved will have a chance to kind of woo him a little bit, and he's certainly going to listen to anybody.
So for the class of 2016, we have 2 commits so far. Do you see that process slowing down, or do you think Michigan's going to continue to take commits?
I think if they can convince the guys that they want, that Michigan is the right place for them, and if those high school players are ready to commit, the coaches will gladly take them. They're not going to hurry anybody along in the process, especially because it's so early, and we've seen them take early commits in the past, and some of those kids ended up decommitting and ending up at other schools. And I think the coaching staff really wants to be careful that they don't take a kid before he's ready. Even if he thinks he's ready, they want him to know he's ready before he commits, so that they don't end up losing more guys down the road, as we saw. There's a couple guys in the 2015 class, 5 stars, Damian Harris and George Campbell, and most recently 4-star cornerback Sean Crawford. They don't want to have those sorts of situations get them in trouble when they suddenly haven't prepared to lose a guy, and now they suddenly are scrambling to look for a new guy to replace him.
Well, for the class of 2015, then, Tim, a lot of us we get really hung up on the star system and where this class is rated in the top 10 or the top 25, which it's not in the top 10. But it seems to me, even with 8 commits so far, Coach Hoke is meeting his needs, and this is a pretty darn good class so far.
Yeah, I think if it had as many commits as some of the other programs in the country, it'd be right in that top 10. You see programs like Tennessee or UCLA or Arizona State. They already have 15 commitments, and if Michigan had nearly that number of commitments, based on stars per commit, they'd be right up there. I don't think anybody's catching Alabama in this class. They have, I think, 11 Rivals 100 players committed, which is just unbelievable. The best early recruiting class, at least. We'll see if they hold on to all those guys. But the best early recruiting class I can ever remember. Nobody's catching Alabama, but Michigan, at least in terms of quality per commit, they might not have as many commitments, but they have as strong a class as just about anybody else in the country.
Well, last question then, Tim. Any players that we haven't mentioned in either the class of 2015 or 16 who might be close to either getting an offer or committing to Michigan soon?
I think the coaching staff is willing to slow things down a little bit and maybe not necessarily have kids committing at this point for the reasons that I just talked about. But I think there are some kids who are pretty, maybe if not close, they're certainly really high on Michigan and could end up in the class by the end of the summer. I think one of those, I think probably the most important one, would be a 2016 kid, offensive lineman Theo Lacusa out of Traverse City West. He thought about committing to Michigan in the winter. He continues thinking about committing to Michigan. He just needs to make sure he's ready, sort of the same way that I said the coaching staff wanted to make sure the kids know they're ready, not just think they're ready. I think he's one of those kids who is in that boat, and as soon as he knows he's ready, I think Michigan is still his first choice, and I think Michigan would be the choice. It's just a matter of timing.
Well, there you go, Recruiting Fanatics. That's our June fix. We'll have another one in July. Our guest today has been recruiting analyst Tim Sullivan from the Wolverine magazine. Subscribe to the magazine. We'll have a link up on our show notes page. Tim's got his nose on the ground. He knows exactly what's happening out there. So, Tim, as always, it's been a pleasure, and we look forward to the next time.
Yep, thanks for having me.
As we know, college football fans, Michigan football fans in particular, just can't get enough recruiting news. So thank you to Tim Sullivan, recruiting analyst from the Wolverine magazine, for being our guest today. And in just another couple of weeks, we will do our July recruiting update, because in the coming weeks, as Tim and I discussed, there very well could be more commits for both the class of 2015 and 2016. Coming up next, Wolverine Quick Hits, as we wrap it up for another week here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. University of Michigan women's basketball head coach Kim Barnes-Arico has announced the hiring of Megan Duffy as an assistant coach. Duffy spent the last 2 seasons at George Washington as the associate head coach and previously coached with Barnes-Arico at St. John's. "I am thrilled to be able to get Megan Duffy back on our staff," Barnes-Arico said. "I had an opportunity to watch her as a player at Notre Dame, and she played with an incredible passion and determination. Those qualities have transferred to her coaching style. We had a chance to work together at St. John's during a time that we broke Connecticut's 99-game home winning streak and made the NCAA Sweet 16 with a win at Oklahoma. With her experience and knowledge of the game, she has become one of the best in the country at player development. Duffy's ability to help young players improve and take their game to the next level can be seen in players like Shanika Smith and Nadira McKenneth, who were both WNBA draft picks after their careers at St. John's. Duffy is a native of Dayton, Ohio, graduated from Notre Dame in 2006 with a double degree in psychology and computer application. So congratulations and welcome to Megan Duffy. Former University of Michigan softball All-American Amanda Chittister earned a spot on the USA Softball Women's National Team, as announced by USA Softball last Sunday, following a selection camp and a series of exhibition games. This marks the 3rd consecutive year that Chittister will compete for Team USA. 17 women in all were chosen for Team USA out of a pool of 24 athletes. Stepping on the field with some of the best players in the country to represent the United States is an honor every time, said Chittister. "I loved every second of the past 2 weeks and can't wait to start our quest for the gold. The selection camp was definitely tough, and any one of the 24 who tried out could have made the team." Chittister had a distinguished career at Michigan, earning All-American status twice in her career, as a freshman in 2009 and a junior in 2011. The Slugger was named the Big Ten Player of the Year twice and was a 3-time All-Big Ten first-team performer. She was honored as Michigan's Big Ten Medal of Honor recipient following her senior campaign. The chief competition for Team USA this summer is the International Softball Federation Women's World Championships, held August 15th through the 24th in Haarlem, Netherlands. Prior to that tournament, the national team will play in 3 tournaments: the General Tire World Cup of Softball, July 7th through the 13th in Irvine, California. The Canadian Open Fast Pitch International, July 15th through the 21st in Surrey, British Columbia. And Italian Softball Week, August 6th through the 10th in Azzano, Italy. So congratulations to former Michigan great Amanda Chittister, who also hails from my hometown of Allen Park, Michigan, where she was a 3-time All-Stater in softball, also All-State in basketball. A great athlete, so congratulations to Michigan great Amanda Chittister. In a final note, junior James Bork of Ann Arbor, Huron, and the University of Michigan baseball team has signed a contract to play professionally with the Washington Nationals organization. Bork will forego his final year of eligibility with the Wolverines. Bork, who was picked in the 14th round of the MLB first-year player draft by the Nationals, made 25 appearances and a start in his junior season with the Maize and Blue. He went 2-2 with a 4.24 earned run average and a save, and had 33 strikeouts in 40.1 innings pitched. He earned a win against Central Michigan on April 2nd, striking out 5 while allowing just 1 hit in 4 innings of relief. He also won the Big Ten tournament game against Minnesota on May 21st, going 3 innings and allowing just 2 hits with no runs while striking out 3 Gophers. In his 3-year career, the 2014 academic All-Big Ten selection has 9 wins and 4 saves to go along with 111 strikeouts in 63 appearances. Bork will report to the Nationals Gulf Coast League team in Vieira, Florida. He also joins junior Trent Skutnik from Bedford High School in Temperance, Michigan, as Wolverines that turned pro after the draft. Make sure you stay in the Wolverine loop this summer wherever your travels take you. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com and sign up for free membership today. You'll get email updates when a story publishes and have access to our very busy message board. It's only 5 weeks until the start of fall practice, and plenty to talk about between now and then. So visit www.gbmwolverine.com and become a member today. If you listen to the show on your laptop or your desktop, you can subscribe at iTunes for free delivery each week the show publishes. Our show app is available at iTunes in the iTunes Store, the Android Market Store at Amazon.com, and the Windows 8 App Store. You can also find us on TuneIn Radio, Stitcher Radio On Demand, and even YouTube. Thanks to my guest today, recruiting analyst Tim Sullivan from the Wolverine magazine. To subscribe to the Wolverine and follow Tim and his great coverage of Michigan recruiting, call 1-800-421-7751. And if you subscribe now, you'll get that great preseason football issue, which is worth it alone. Don't forget we're on our summer schedule of 2 shows a month until August, when we resume weekly programming and start to preview this fast-approaching football season. That means our next show will publish on July 9th, so be sure to join us for that. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. I hope your summer's off to a great start. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. We'll see you again right back here in 2 weeks. Until then, take care, and as always, Go Blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue.